The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning, everybody. Today, politicians representing two of the major political parties in the country are under fire, facing investigation by local police. On the one hand, rumors police are looking into contracts favoring a particular member of parliament of the male persuasion, who once served as executive chairman of a government corporation. The investigation reportedly drawing in everyone from his ex-fiancée to his mother, and even a government corporation senior executive into the mix. On the other hand, a female cabinet minister is also being duly investigated by police in relation to a claim that she struck an on-duty police officer with a car that she was driving, all while her young daughter sat on the inside. Both politicians claim that they are being targeted. But is this true? And if so, by who? Or could it simply be that both of these individuals are mere victims of a political tit for tat? And if there is a there to be found by police, in other words, evidence of criminal wrongdoing on either or both of their parts, what is the possible political and legal fallout for these two? The Brits would say that the duo are in a spot of bother. We Bahamians tend to say when we hear things like this that they are both in big trouble. These are all the issues that my guests and I will now explore during the show. But I am obligated to remind you that whatever we may think about the allegations against these two individuals, they are both innocent until proven guilty under our law. I am attorney Indiana Fitzgerald, your guest host for the morning, and you are listening to Guardian Radio A.M. Live on 96.9 FM. Good morning, everybody. Attorney Indiana Fitzgerald in your company. It's a pleasure to be here as always. Happy Monday. I'm here today with my special guest from the Democratic National Alliance, Mr. Derek Smith. He is the party chairman, and we may be joined a little later by another member of the DNA party, but we want to talk today about all of the activity that's been going around concerning two politicians in particular, one from the F&M in the person of Mr. Adrian Gibson, and the other from the PLP in the person of Cabinet Minister Ms. Jo Beth Colby Davis. And I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion today. Ms. Colby Davis is, of course, the Minister of Transport and Housing, and she has been under fire in a number of ways, quite innocently for just being a very outspoken member of Parliament and Cabinet Minister. And we'll get to her story in a minute, but I want to take a look first at the situation involving Member of Parliament Adrian Gibson. And before I do that, let me welcome my guest to the show. So, Chairman Derek Smith of the DNA, welcome to Guardian Radio AM Live.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fitzgerald. It's a pleasure being here again, and I'd like to say good morning to my Bahamian people. Good morning to all of you.
Amen. You know, Mr. Smith, it seems as though over the last few weeks we've heard so many different political persons' names called in the press for some difficulty. You had Mr. Gibson, who we're going to deal with in relation to purportedly some contracts that favor him that were issued from the Water and Sewage Corporation, where he served as executive chairman. We're going to hear about JoBeth Colby Davis, who, of course, was accused of striking an officer with the vehicle that she was driving during the Carnival Road March. We have Lincoln Bain in the press, who's leader of the Coalition of Independence, who was in the bushes shooting off guns and saying some wild and crazy things, and was later asked to come into the police to answer some questions. He says he's out there protecting Crown land from persons that are out there burning trees on that property and making coal out of it. And we even have poor Wayne Monroe there. He took some heat over the last several days in relation to this whole situation with the sex offender registry and one of the offenders being exposed by him and shortly thereafter being found maybe beaten or injured in some way in a track road and then later taken to hospital where he died. But our concentration today is on Colby Davis and, of course, Gibson. And I guess the DNA is breathing a sigh of relief that none of its members have had issues with the police over the last several days or months.
Well, I guess you can say that we're not breathing a sigh of relief, but you live this life, and whenever you put yourself in public life,
Yeah.
one of the first things that actually happens, it seems like the bad news is always the only thing that tends to get the attention.
Yeah.
We are all human beings, and we are all susceptible to failure, but as public servants or civil servants, we put ourselves in this position, and we are open to scrutiny. And the public needs to know, and the public will know eventually. Some of these cases or incidents that we've seen happen, they're sub judice. In other words, basically, they're still subject to, like you said, innocent until proven guilty. Mm-hmm. But the public wants to know and want to hear our opinion. But we can shed light on some of those situations.
Mm-hmm. Well, it will only become sub judice once there's charges before a court. And we can't talk about it anymore, but we're free to talk about it now. And we don't know what's going on with Adrian Gibson. So, there are concerns that maybe by this morning, he if the police had wrapped up whatever investigation they had out there, that he might be before the courts. But, that was only speculation. So we talk on. And my second guest is also here. He is Director of Communications with the Democratic National Alliance, Mr. Justin Smith. So, Justin Smith, you are welcome to the show as well.
Thank you.
It's good to see you here this morning.
Yes.
And so that there will be no confusion, because both men are named Smith. The Chairman Smith will be referred to as Mr. Smith. Justin says it's okay for me to call him Justin on the air, just so you know. So let's just begin with this point. In terms of these investigations into members of parliament, for many years we went through life in the Bahamas and we never really heard of these sorts of things. Not to say that we've never had a member of parliament tried and convicted for corruption. We've had the case of Wilbur Morse many years ago, people will remember, where he was accused of attempting to bribe Magistrate Cleopatra Christie, or then Magistrate Cleopatra Christie. She went on to of course, achieve higher office, position in the AG's office after that. So this is not completely virgin territory, but we saw under the Minnis administration, Dr. Minnis introducing this whole concept of making people accountable who hold government office.
Yes.
And he would have, through his government, seen the prosecution of Shane Gibson, Mr. Frank Smith, and it would have been Ken Dorset if the government, the F&M government, had probably won this election this time around. And so I want to say this, though. Kudos to Mr. Minnis for taking that step. Because, in the Bahamas, we often walk around saying this politician corrupt, that politician is corrupt, but nothing is ever done to establish that. And all it does is stain the person's name forevermore, and they have no way of clearing it because it's said publicly. But at least he went in there and did it. And I think a lot of the way the F&M approached these cases was wrong.
Yes.
And clearly the court found so in the Frank Smith case, when members of the F&M political crew, Dwayne Sands and Marvin Dames were accused of interfering in a certain way in that matter. And then you had, of course, the debacle with the Shane Gibson matter and police officers trying to manipulate information. Yeah. But I think Mr. Minnis did the right thing. But I know one thing, when you say, I stand for X, you will be tested in that area. Yeah. So you say stand against corruption, you're going to be tested to see if you are really going to stand against corruption. What do you gentlemen say?
Well, my opinion is yes, the government has actually taken some step. What I call them baby step, or maybe just public display. Public display of, I don't know, they're trying to say sound like as if they're actually going to do their job. But what is so sad about most of these cases and in the Bahamas, no one goes to jail. So it seems as if it's just something to appease the public more than anything else. We say, okay, we're going to put corruption or those corrupt politicians, put them on trial, we will expose them. But you get there, you expose them, and something always goes wrong.
Right.
Which has to do with our prosecution process. We're going to prosecute a person, then we need to get our facts together. And then you're dealing with the character of a person. So you just don't take a person to court if you're not prepared to go all the way. Because you're actually tarnishing their name. And in fact, I do believe that what the political parties or politicians have actually been doing, they're not interested in sending anyone to jail. They're probably just interested in picking up little mileage. Let's get rid of Adrian Gibson. Let's get rid of Shane Gibson. I really believe that they're not interested in sending anyone to jail. Like I said, in the Bahamas, sadly, our prosecution or the way the police even conduct their investigation, it's a lot left to be desired still, so it's a show. When someone goes to jail, I'm not saying send someone to jail just to send them to jail's sake and appease the public. What I am saying is that if you're going to bring someone's name up and take them to court, do the investigation, prosecute, make sure that your ducks are in a row so that there is a reason to prosecute and you are successful. But we waste millions, and I dare to say millions and millions of dollars of the public purse, and there is no end results. These politicians, they don't take the Bahamian people seriously. They don't take us seriously, and they don't take the government seriously because there is no end results for their crime or whatever they have done wrong. When people start going to jail from the head to the tail, then people would realize that, I need to pull up my socks and let my money be my money in the public purse. Let that be the public purse.
Well, you say that you don't think that they want, the government wants, for example, Adrian Gibson to go to jail per se. They just want him gone, you say? Because I would say to that, for him to be gone, he's a sitting MP. You have to produce some evidence to show that he is corrupt in some way, such that his party would even say to him, you need to step down, or the police will say to him, we need to put you before the court. Yeah. Have you tried? Have you convicted? So I don't know that I necessarily agree with the statement that they don't want them to go to jail. But I see what Adrian Gibson has said is that, through his attorney, is that they're targeting me. I'm a target.
Yeah, it's
and is he a target?
Well, in the last 10 years of this country, we've been using this term political witch hunt. A new government comes in, and it seems like the first agenda is, I could get you back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's become a spectacle for Bahamians, and Bahamians are actually enjoying it.
You think so?
I do believe that a lot of Bahamians are enjoying the saga of these MPs or former politicians going before the courts, it's become a soap opera in some way. And even though they're Bahamians that are enjoying it, they're also Bahamians that are very disgusted by it. They're Bahamians
Yeah.
that really are fed up with it. They're just tired of
Right.
it. But from a public relations standpoint, this is an opportunity for both parties. The Davis administration could now say, well, you know what? See, we're actually finding corruption where you guys came and put our persons on trial and stuff, and all of them were basically acquitted. And now we find some evidence of your person that was in place, and now we could actually, like Mr. Smith said, that we have some evidence, or we have evidence to prove that this guy, and I agree, they probably would have not undertake the task of putting him before the courts or trying to get him before the courts if they didn't have something that they could show. But, you know, even in this position, the Adrian standpoint, I would say to him, you know, remember Shane Gibson. If you know that you are innocent, if you know that you are not someone that can be found of any wrongdoing, then remember Shane Gibson. At the end of the day, Shane Gibson went through the same process. The Bible tells us that he knows the way that you take him. When you've been tried, you shall come out as fine gold. So at the end of the day, Adrian, if you know that you've not done any wrongdoing, guess what? Remember Shane Gibson. Shane Gibson came back and he sued the government for defamation of character, and he got a nice check. So would we?
2.5 million.
Thank you very much.
Whatever you sued them
so at the end,
I think it's like wrongful arrest and intention, maybe, and all of that,
All
and
of that.
malicious prosecution.
So
I haven't seen the actions, but I
Yeah.
think that would be in there too.
So I would tell my lawyer, okay, well, if I go through this and this happens, just be prepared for what the outcome is going to be. I could get paid for that.
But the thing is, you sometimes have to wait so long for justice. You know, Brave Davis said when Shane Gibson's case was concluded that, you know, it was clear that what the F&M was pursuing was what he called, quote, victor's justice. You know, and here he's quoted in this particular article as saying that, you know, the political parties the political party in power is taking advantage of its position as guardian of the state to oppress the political minority, meaning, you know, the PLP at the time who only had 4 little people
Yep.
in power, but couldn't they be accused of the same thing because now the F&M only has 7, you know, and they're going after Mr. Gibson the same way. But I would say this, you know, I think the F&M should have seen this coming because, you know, prior to the election, Mr. Woods, who was the union head for down there at Water and Sewage, was making this fuss. He was accusing Adrian Gibson of renting SDs on water and sewage property to people. He was accusing him of this and he was accusing him of that. And then you had Brave Davis coming out prior to the election, Prime Minister Brave Davis, who was saying things like, well, you know, be careful how you treat our people because the time may come when you may face this same type of justice. So I thought the F&M should have said to themselves, look, as popular as Adrian Gibson is in Long Island, I think this is a character we cannot risk running.
It was a risk,
Because I know they say Long Island is very F&M, but I thought it may have been even a risk that they would vote for him with these allegations pending. And we still don't know what really Adrian is even being investigated for by the police, right?
Innocent until proven
Innocent
guilty.
until proven guilty, right? But you should know that that would be a distraction whether the F&M won or lost in this term, because the PLP would have kept picking at the situation. And so, you know, I thought that was poor choice on their part to still run him. What do you say? And I'm not saying he's guilty, but just the distraction. Like how when Peter Turnquist was there, that whole situation with him was a distraction. He knew he just needed to step away so the party could proceed.
Yeah, well, Peter would have made that decision, and I think he had more of. But during the election campaign, you would have noticed that a lot of things with the F&M were a little bit disjointed. There were a group doing this, a group doing that. It was a little bit all over the place in their campaign. I don't think at the time they were so caught up in being mindful of the details of, okay, what can this cost us if we run this person? It was the point that, okay, we've called the snap election, our team should be in place. This guy is the incumbent, more than likely he may win again. So we're going to just we're just going to keep that there. But to say going into the details, probably they didn't do justice of investigating and seeing if he would be much of a risk. But I sure the party has public relation consultants, so someone should have said, hey, this may cost us something down the line.
And they had a problem with Mr. Gibson early in the game because you'll remember he was the young whippersnapper who, right out the gate when the cabinet was named, he was vexed that he wasn't among them. They had to tell him, cool off, bruh.
Yes. Yes,
Cool off. Wait your turn.
Yep.
You just reach.
Yeah, well, sometimes, we're anxious and we go after things that we think that we deserve, and actually you probably don't deserve it, and sometimes that's the end results. But I think what the Davis administration simply did was picked up where the F&M had left off, because what has happened is that, remember, his name had come up many times before. This rumor just did not start. So if the F&M started that particular rumor or their concern about Adrian Gibson, all the Davis administration did when they came in, they just went for the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
So
The most obvious.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Because I don't think, in my mind, if Adrian Gibson had not run, that the PLP would be going
Yeah, it
after him
would,
now.
yeah.
Because there's others they can go
Exactly.
after now. Because, Shannon Don Cartwright has something hanging over his head. And I
Yes.
believe he may be very well be next in line unless he
Exactly.
has some friends in the PLP.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's done anything wrong either, but they keep attacking him every other week in the parliament and saying, well, I know, like Alfred said to him, I know it. For you to do the things that you did, you had to have other people in your party approving of it too. But we know you all went way, way, way over your budget.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
It's a public relations thing as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one that has so much potential. So they're basically, okay, you may be
Yeah.
next, you shangin', okay,
Yeah.
we have to dirty you up
because
a little bit.
there are young people there in this F&M party now. When you
Yes.
compare it to, not to say the PLP doesn't have young people, but at the top there seems to be a lot of older crew there
Age
too.
gap.
So
Yeah.
they may think that people may become more attracted to the young F&M, and they need to do something about it.
It's all political, public relations.
Like I said, I think basically it's to sully the water of the other party. That's basically what it is. Make them look as dirty as possible, so that just putting stumbling blocks in their way more
Right.
than anything else. Then you call it a witch hunt. Yes, it's a witch hunt. Maybe someone goes to jail this time, because I think the public, the Bahamian public, we wasted enough money on what I call endless investigation with no results.
Right.
And what is sad is that it's usually the government or the prosecution that usually messes up.
Right. Right. And when I used to serve as a panelist on another talk show in another place, one thing I said as a former prosecutor of the Attorney General's office, that when it comes to these types of matters, because we're so tribal in the Bahamas, because there's the possibility of political interference in these types of prosecutions, because we were not familiar with doing the types of prosecutions that they did in relation to Shane Gibson and Frank Smith, that they should have gone internationally and gotten a prosecutor from the UK, because we're under the British system.
Yes.
Bring that person and let them start from beginning to end, putting the case together and then prosecuting it, right? I was vilified for that. When the government realized that that is something that they needed to do, they brought that prosecutor in far too late. The case had already been put together. He really, I don't think, was able to shape it the way that he would have. And I think maybe that would have helped to prevent some of the interference that was there, because this independent person from the UK
Yes.
would have said, no, excuse me, I'm a Queen's Counsel. My reputation is everything
Yes,
to me.
yes.
I'm not going to allow you to come here and call me and say, let this happen or let that happen.
And remove the biasness of it.
Yeah. I'll say this, though. What is sad about the Adrian Gibson scenarios, all the people who've been pulled in, Ramona Farquharson, his attorney, says that, the other day, it may have been the day that he was brought in for questioning for several hours. I think she said 7 or 8, and then taken to his house for that to be searched. That his mom also received a call that, hey, we want to come and search your house for drugs.
Yeah.
Where that come from?
Well, the reason why the police always says drug, police don't need a search warrant for drugs, basically. Or they can stop you. It's like saying firearm or guns. That is the police excuse, just like the bank's excuse would probably be fraud. They just throw a blanket and have a reason so that they can go and search and look for other information.
And you know that because you were a police reservist.
Yes.
You've worked with the police for years.
That is-
so
that
you
is
know how
correct.
they go. It's interesting, though, that I'm looking at the matter. Like you say, we don't know exactly what it is the police are investigating. And
Proceeds
So-
of crime. That's what he's being charged with.
oh,
Proceeds of
there's
crime.
now a charge.
No, that's actually the power in which they actually investigating this case. It's proceeds of crime.
Wow.
Receiving proceeds of crime. That's what it is.
Wow. Very interesting. We'll be back with my guests, Justin Smith and Derek Smith of the DNA, right after this break.
A local paper in Grand Bahama is back every Tuesday as a section of the Nassau Guardian. Available at local stores, gas stations, pharmacies, Western Bakery, and Bellevue Gifts. Daily and, of course, on Tuesdays too. Want to reach your Grand Bahama audience? Then call Barefoot Marketing at 827-4578 or message them for ad rates via their Facebook page. Advertising opportunities now include classified ads too. Keep up with all the latest Grand Bahama news in the Guardian newspaper every Tuesday.
It's back! One of the biggest regattas on the sailing calendar. It's the 53rd annual Long Island Regatta in Salt Pond, Long Island, June 1st to 4th. The biggest economic boost for Long Island is back with more than 40 sloops competing in the A, B, C, and D classes, along with the Long Island Youth Regatta and the Man in the Boat sculling races. Don't miss this major cultural experience June 1st to 4th, the 53rd annual Long Island Regatta in Salt Pond. All of the fastest sloops will be there. Artisans displaying their handmade crafts, jewelry, and strawware. Great food, including the world-famous native mutton dishes, and endless memories all await you at the 53rd annual Long Island Regatta in Salt Pond.
Long Island breeze, your sheep are bleating.
Guardian Media will be broadcasting live at the 53rd annual Long Island Regatta with live updates of the sailing results and activities every day. If you'd like to be a sponsor, just contact your account executive or call the Nassau Guardian at 302-2300. That's 302-2300. Yes, it's back. One of the biggest regattas on the sailing calendar. It's the 53rd annual Long Island Regatta in beautiful Salt Pond, Long Island, June 1st to 4th.
Long Island Regatta Update, proudly sponsored by Basalt Fiber Rebar. No steel, no big deal. Bay Street Garage, distributors of Castrol. The Del Business Agency, distributors of Hunt's Ketchup. Lickety Split, a cool spot for hot shots. Standard Services, your one-stop shop for all your household and plumbing needs. And Sands Beer, distributed by Jimmy's Wine and Spirits.
Preparing for a hurricane can make all the difference in safeguarding lives. By knowing what actions you should take to reduce the effects of hurricane disaster. Get all the facts of the potential of having insurance, impact-resistant windows, home emergency power, surge protectors, essential supplies, plus so much more before the storm, after the storm, where to purchase building or cleaning supplies, waste disposal, medical care, which auto shop to go to after driving through flooded streets, and more. The Nassau Guardian's Hurricane Guide will help to make sure everyone knows what to do in the event a hurricane approaches. Take advantage of this double insertion opportunity, plus 15 radio commercials. Contact us today, 302-2300, or your account executives. Will you be prepared?
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Good morning, everybody. Attorney Indiana Fitzgerald in your company. You're listening to Guardian Radio A.M. live on 96.9 FM. I'm here with representatives of the Democratic National Alliance, Chairman Mr. Derek Smith, and Director of Communications, Mr. Justin Smith. And we are just discussing matters in which politicians today are under fire, some may say, because there are matters that are being investigated. I said earlier that we would also look at the scenario with Member of Parliament and Cabinet Minister JoBeth Colby, who, as the country probably knows by now, has a situation in which she was accused of striking an on-duty police officer with her private vehicle that she was driving on the day of the Carnival Road March. And, in this Guardian this morning, the Nassau Guardian, there's now a story in response to what has been said about the whole situation from Wayne Monroe.
Yes.
Ms. Colby Davis has said, look, I am not guilty of what this man said. He's not telling the truth. According to the Police Staff Association, their police officer, who has not been identified in the letter that they wrote with respect to the matter, says that he was struck, and it seems to be at least 3 times by this vehicle. And so at the end of the day, it's a he said, she said. But according to Wayne Monroe now, he is saying, well, as on the day of the incident, he was contacted by Colby Davis.
Yep.
And Colby Davis said to him, well, I tried to explain to this officer who I was so I could get through the stop, and he doesn't believe me. And Mr. Monroe says, well, I asked her to find out things like his name, his rank, his badge number, and he doesn't cough those items of information up. She's trying to get him to come to the phone to say, yes, she is who she is, and he doesn't come. And then he goes on to say, but she says everything is fine. And it doesn't seem from the tone of her voice that it's any troubled situation to suggest that her and the officer were in some type of kerfuffle. And then he says, he seems to suggest, although it isn't very clear, that the officer never made a formal complaint. It seems that he may have told his staff association, but it doesn't seem that he made a formal police complaint, which you would expect, I guess, a police officer to do. And, he says he saw a video, and the video does not show that Colby Davis knocked the officer down. Now, I never heard the claim being that he had been knocked down. No. I know it said that he had been struck.
Yes.
Which is a difference.
Yeah. Big difference.
So clearly the officer, what he did was he went out there and he got reportedly medical attention. So you'll have a medical report there if he's injured. The medical report should be able to say if it was consistent with a car incident.
Yes.
He's retained counsel, although I don't know who the attorney is, and we have not heard publicly, as far as I know, from that attorney yet with regard to the matter. And so I see on Facebook there is a video with someone sitting in a car purportedly filming the situation. So I don't know if this officer has a video that will support what he is saying. There's something flying around on Facebook saying that now the tables are being turned on the officer to say he was insubordinate. And that it didn't happen the way that he says. I don't know. What do you gentlemen think about the whole thing? Because again, this is a case where, and we'll get to this, where the minister said she's being targeted. But what do you think about the whole scenario?
Well, I mean, for me, the details that Wayne Monroe spoke about in the tabloids, it changed my whole perspective of it because, like I said, it's basically he say she says situation. But then for you to say, as the Minister of National Security,
who's responsible for that officer?
Who's responsible for that officer? I was contacted by my fellow colleague in cabinet to confirm that she is the who she said she is when she told the officer, do you know who I am? Or that's what the officer is saying, that she said, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
So it came out to me like a typical Bahamian story, which is you go into some bank and you are standing on a long line and you have to deal with a teller.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with the teller does not do what as you wish or doesn't please what you wish, and then you say, oh, do you know who I am, or do you know who I know? Okay, my auntie is the general manager of this thing. I'm going to make a phone call. So to me, obviously it sounds like a typical Bahamian story, which is when we don't get our way with certain matters, we call someone that we know is more superior and stuff like that. Now, my only thing is, when Wayne Monroe was my only thing with that situation is, he would have made a statement a while back when he was also dealing with political figure at the time who was in private life, the former leader of the Democratic National Alliance, Branville McCartney. He said Branville McCartney can be he can be arrested by an officer because at the end of the day he is a citizen of the country. So now what it comes off to me as if this was some form of fear or intimidation to this officer, that you as the cabinet minister could call the Minister of National Security and say, well, you need to put this officer in his place or let him know who he's dealing with. Now we cannot say, like we said, it's he say, she say. But the officer said he was struck. He never said that he was knocked down.
Right.
So we don't know what struck is, because if you hit me with your tail light, if you hit me with your side mirror, I could say I was struck. If you spit on me, I could say I could also sue you for that as well. So at the end of the day, what brings new light to this is that the Minister of National Security was called for this matter, which we as Bahamians, we know this story. This is the story that when you don't get a certain way or someone is making you upset and you have some form of connection, you call who you know to deal with the matter. And at the end of the day, my only thing is, why is the Minister of National Security being called for a matter like this? Are we going to war? The Minister of National Security has much things on his plate that at the end of the day, I think the matter could have been resolved a little bit differently if calmer heads had come to some form of, understanding.
What is also interesting to me is that this matter has been playing out from the data shortly after Carnival Road March, which was the day actually in which it allegedly occurred. Yeah. And now, the matter after Parliament one day, Ms. Colby Davis was interviewed by the press, and she said, this is untrue, and my Grammy says, who laughs loudest or whatever. But I was saying to myself, how is it that we're only just hearing this version of events from Mr. Monroe after what would it have been 7-8 days? Yeah. I'm not saying that he's not being truthful. I'm just questioning why, as ministers of the government, your reputation should be everything. Yes. And the quicker you clear up a smear on your reputation, the better, right? So I would have thought that if this was the way that things proceeded, maybe it was said in the Parliament and I didn't hear it by Jo Beth Colby or the Minister himself of National Security, that this was how it played out. But I never heard that version until this morning. Yes. So it may concern people because people will say, well, y'all had all these days now to come up with this story. But I think what Mr. Monroe now needs to do, because he said when Colby Davis wasn't able to get out of the officer who he was, that he then demanded, requested of her that she get a photo of the person. So that should have a timestamp. Yeah. That should tell us some things. Phone records from her to the minister should tell us some things, whether the call happened. But I'll say this about the officer. I'm proud that he took the steps that he took, if he was indeed injured in the situation, as he says, because there could have been the possibility of pressure being put on him from the top. Yes. Hey, let's let this thing dead, because this is the minister, And I go back to the situation, the reported situation of Brown McCartney, where, it was alleged that he had gotten into an altercation with a woman, and then the police were called to assist the woman, and then he kapunkled up the officer that came to deal with the situation, and the matter just seemed to be swept right under the carpet. And I thought how disappointing it was. It made a mockery of the officer. It made a mockery of the force. It made a mockery of the rule of the law, because the rule of law says that nobody is above the law. And to me, I don't think it should have. I think, however we go forward, we need to phrase laws in relation to things that people do to the police, because I still have respect for the police. I don't like certain things they do. Certain elements of them are corrupt, right? Yeah. And I know that from my own personal stories, I can say. And so, and what you see printed in the news about corrupt officers. But I think that whenever you go and you attack a police officer, or intimidate them or whatever, that should be mandatory prosecution. Yes. It shouldn't be up to the police whether or not he goes ahead and makes a complaint against you, or fears making the complaint against you because he may suffer on the force because of it. And so at the end of the day, I just hope that the matter goes the direction it's supposed to go. If
Yes.
the government doesn't agree to prosecute and the officer feels that, hey, I have sufficient evidence to prove what I've stated in my claim to the staff association, etc., it's open to him to have a private prosecution, even though there was a time when the AG could interfere with that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if the power has now been transferred to the DPP in the breaking off of the two
Somewhat.
officers, but kudos to the officer, if that is what happened to him, for standing up.
Yes.
And if that did not happen to him, if he is told an untruth, then he needs to be dealt with
reprimanded
accordingly.
for that. Yeah, and this is why the DNA also spoke about one of our policies to bring to good governance, and our good governance policy is to remove a lot of the political interference
Exactly.
from the police force, the commission of police being interfered in being interfered by political situations like this. And not only that, also we've proposed that there be a code of conduct for parliamentarians, a code of conduct act. So in situations like this, where we have parliamentarians saying, do you know who I am? Well, also, let's remind you the responsibility
Yes.
of your office. Let's
Yeah.
remind you of who you really are, because now you're under an act that would enforce you to carry yourself in a certain conduct
Right.
that you could be held more accountable than the average citizen of the Bahamas.
You know, I think the Bahamian public are so disappointed in what I call the Royal Bahamas Police Force. It's because so many times, you know, we can see the entire police force being utilized by politicians. The force or the Commissioner of Police or the Minister of National Security, you need to extricate the police force from political interference. I mean, the Bahamian publics are so tired. That's a tired, played out story. We've had enough of that. Because, I mean, let the police be the police. And I actually cry shame on police officers, senior officers, who actually allow themselves to be used. You know, I've seen words, I've watched the respect or the lack of respect that the public actually have for the police officers. It's simply because they have allowed themselves to fall to such a level that there is no respect or very little respect. I've heard people calling them like what you call paid mobsters in uniform, you know, a bunch of political prostitutes. You know, these are the words that people are actually utilizing for the police force. I serve on the police force, and I might as well tell you, it's a few bad apples that causes that tarnishes the force. But senior officers, let's put the responsibility where the responsibility is. The Commissioner of Police, I am sick and tired of seeing police officers being used for political situation, you know, or political goons. You know, we have situations. I mean, I bring up the Lincoln Bean incident, but it isn't only Lincoln Bean incident. There's so many different incidents that I know that happen in this country where the police steps in. Who gives directives to some of these directives or some of these orders to go and arrest someone, and then when you get to the station, there's nothing to actually hold them on. It's all just politics. You know, we have to get far beyond that. Bahamian people are tired. They are disgusted. You know, good officers are out there. I know that they are out there
Yeah,
because
they
I
are.
served, you know, but there are a few bad apples that spoils the bunch. You know, I would say, you know, how it's unlawful to obey what I call an unlawful order, basically. You know, so police officers have to start standing.
And a level of respect for the law as well. You would see in America, we have a situation, something like this, just Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, her husband, she is basically the third most powerful person in the United States. And her husband was arrested on DUI charges. And at the end of the day, her response was, "This is a private matter, and we'll do what we have to do." But at the end of the day, that's the husband of the Speaker of the House, and he was arrested. There was a respect for the law in that matter. She may have gotten a call that her husband is right now in jail, but she at the end of the day, she showed respect out of the matter, which is, I'm the Speaker of the House. My husband has been found in fault or breach of the law, and at the end of the day, the law has to take its due course.
I'll say this too, you know, normally when you see persons in government have an issue, the Attorney General's office normally serves as the attorney for that person. All right, so if an MP, a cabinet minister is accused of XYZ, in the course of their duties, the AG's office would step in. But this situation with Mrs. Colby Davis, who I like very much, I think she's very tenacious. I think she's good for government. I really think she helps a lot of people. During election time, people bragged on the way that she found jobs and did things for people. And I understand she's that person, that go-getter, and that make things happen person. So I really hope that this whole situation could be sorted out, and in favor of the parties generally. But the question will be in this situation. I think she will have to. Who will she retain as her counsel? Because we haven't heard. But clearly, I don't think this is a situation where the AG's office will be representing her, simply because it seemed to be a private situation. She wasn't. Does not appear to be that she was operating in the course of her duties as a member of parliament. But I'll say this, though. If there is a situation, because, if she did strike the individual with her car and, the police agree with that and they charge her, it can be any charge, assault or maybe grievous bodily harm, depending on his injuries, or if she kept going back and forth and hitting him, because he says 3 times, it could be maybe even attempted murder. These are serious charges. And then you may have some vehicular charges under the Road Traffic Act. It could be anything, right? Whatever it is, if they decide to charge her and place her before a court of law to be tried on the matter, the bottom line is that you would want that trial to come up very quickly, though, because she needs to be able to get back to the business of representing her constituency and indeed taking care of the needs of the country. Yes. So I pray that whatever is happening here, it's resolved quickly and amenably. But she says she was targeted. Do you agree that is a possibility, and who would be targeting her? Because it seems as if that situation wasn't a pre-planned situation. I know she's going to be here at this roadblock, and so I'm going to have an officer there to spank her on her hand for trying to come through this barricade. This wasn't a situation like that.
If you put it like that.
So in this instance, how is she targeted?
Well, if you put it like that, then you have to say every Bahamian that has been disgruntled with some policy that didn't work to their advantage would have been targeted. They would have been set up. When you go to AID or one of the other stores and they don't have the thing on the shelf, you know what I targeted, because they know I was coming in here to get my wrench and they didn't have my Phillips wrench and stuff. So we can say that. And then also, she has been one of the cabinet ministers that has been in a lot of debacles every now and again. You have the Will Smith tweet, you have the Pinecrest situations with flooding and stuff like that. I just think,
and people say she speaks out too much. I don't see anything wrong with it. I like her for it.
Well, and Bahamian, sometimes we have
they let one women to know their place.
Yeah, old mindset.
So I think you're thinking like that, dead wrong. And I'm no PLP, no F&M, I'm no political party.
We're in the 21st century. You respect all persons.
I
and
respect
their
everybody.
opinions and their voices.
Yeah.
But I think for her situation, it's a situation that at the end of the day can play out in her favor and can play out, in her detriment with certain situations. And then also the Prime Minister has to make some decisions as well. Hubert Ingram, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram would have said, this is one of the issues with dealing with a very large cabinet. You have so many strings that you got to pull and manage and make sure and maintain.
It's like mine and Little Churn.
And then one thing I can say is the PLP has a cabinet that is full of many personalities, very big
strong
personalities. So you have individuals in their spaces doing their thing, but also, the Prime Minister is the chair of that cabinet. So what he has to do is also, make decisions to say, hey, maybe we may have to calm you down for a while. You may have to take a step back. We may have to put you as a backbencher, because at the end of the day, if we're going to have all of these little debacles going on because of character or code of conduct,
it's a distraction.
Then you're distracting me
work.
from my vision for the country and what I need to get done.
If a charge is proffered against her, or charges are proffered against her in relation to this incident, the day that happens, or a time before that happens just because of the heat, should the Prime Minister then say, we're not going to wait it out for a trial and see what is determined for you? Should he just say, you should step down for the sake of the party from your cabinet post?
It will never happen. In fact, I think this is going to go away. If this goes to court, I'll be shocked.
Yeah?
That's
Yeah.
putting it plain and simple.
Yeah. Why you say that?
I think I will be shocked because I think there are other ways that they can actually, and they probably will try to
To
deal with
resolve it.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
More than likely.
And I mean, if the officer was injured, just saying, look, we'll settle. We'll ask her to settle this matter with
Yes.
you. It's a private matter. We'll
Yes.
ask her to settle. Maybe he will be satisfied and not want to press charges. But I think he's well within his right to
Yes.
press the charges. And if I were him and I were injured in that way, I don't care who would have injured me, I would have pressed charges if I were him. But
Yes.
we'll see. So listen, we have about 4 minutes left of the show. This is the word I want to introduce. By-election? Maybe? Maybe one, maybe two, depending on how the matters turn out at the end of the day. If that's the case, y'all ready? The DNA is ready?
Yeah, the DNA is more than ready for a by-election. Actually, we talked about that some time ago. I don't know if it will come to that, but I have a strong feeling it's a strong possibility that it will because he's a sitting member of parliament, and that's a lot of detraction away from, I guess, even him actually serving his constituents. I think he has to make a decision, and I think eventually he will probably step down.
Yeah, for the betterment of the party as well. I could see that the current leader, he may be because he's I see what Michael Pintard is trying to do. He's trying to bring unison to the party and have the party on a one mandate type of thing. But you have all of these stuff going on, and it may cost as well to his agenda the distraction. So in the case of the Democratic National Alliance, we've been going through our introspections. We've been doing what we had to do concerning going through post situations and realizing where did we go wrong, how are we portraying ourselves to the Bahamian people, what can we do different for the next elections. But as you say, a by-election may be in place, and I believe the DNA will be ready for that.
Code of conduct of ministers across the board. I think under the PLP, maybe it was the Perry Christie administration, they seem to have some document floating around about how cabinet ministers should
carry
behave
them. Yes,
and
yes.
not be involved with private family matters while they're and sitting in the
Yes.
cabinet and running this and running that for themselves and their families, and they're
Yes.
sitting in the parliament and all that. Do you have a code of conduct in the DNA now, or
Yes.
are you going to put that on board in the next couple of weeks, months?
Yes, we always had a code of conduct. We even had a term limit even for politicians and even not so much politicians, but even our leadership.
Party leadership.
Our party leadership.
What is that term?
Well, we say no more than 2 terms.
The leader.
5 years each.
The leader would be able to serve 2 consecutive terms as prime minister or as leader, a timeline of about 10 years as party leader. But we do have a code of conduct, and that's
And
why
I agree with that, what you say.
Yes, that's why we put in place one of our policies to promote is a code of conduct for all parliamentarians, because the code of conduct for cabinet ministers, it really doesn't hold them to accountability. It's simply like when you come into work and they say, this is how you must carry yourself and boop, boop, boop. But they're not really reprimands to that. And if you legislate or you enact an act, then these persons can be held accountable for the offices that they take on.
You said something interesting to me because I always privately interview my wonderful guests, which you all are, before we come to show. And you had said there was a prophecy talking about by-elections. Tell the public about that.
I think there was, as far as I remember, when Prophet Benjamin Smith, he had talked about a house of many colors.
Yeah.
And he said, if I'm correct, he said when he was on a show, he said that it may not come as we think on a general election, but you may see several by-elections that make this happen.
It would be in this season now that we're in.
Within this term or something like that. He said he was basically speaking towards the next election, and he said it may not come in this election, but it may come throughout the time frame.
Right, but,
so,
yeah.
Bahamians, we are respecters of prophecy. We believe, the country recognizes God. So it may be something that we see happening, and at the end of the day, parties like the Democratic National Alliance, if we really want to be the symbols of change, we have to be able to relate that to the Bahamian people. I think the Bahamian people, after the last general election, as you can see, less than 60% of the population even participated in the general election. So Bahamians are really disgruntled. They're tired of the back and forth, and that is why parties like the Democratic National Alliance has to always be at the table, because we have to continue to be a voice for those people that say, "Hey, I am tired of really being enslaved into the mindset of it's only two options.
Yeah, it's only A or B.
It's only two.
We
That's
bringing
what-
you C.
Yeah, that's why I tell people the DNA for me is not just a party. It's not just a group of people that just came together because we say, oh, you know what, I would be the FNM or PLP. But it's a symbol of a mindset. It's a mindset of Bahamian people that are saying this is something that I want to be able to have the freedom of not feeling enslaved or intimidated by two choices. I want to be able to make an option for myself and pick and choose. Nobody likes to go to a restaurant that only has 3 items on the menu.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to make a choice, an independent choice for yourself, and not feel like you're intimidated into making one choice.
Yeah,
You know?
alternative, because basically we call them the Orange Party because there's too much of the same. So there must be an alternative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we are almost flat out of time. And so I just want to say thank you to you all. You
Thank
came
you.
on short notice.
Thank you.
And you're always a party that's very full and frank with your answers. You're not afraid
No.
to give answers. And I hear that you're coming forward in short order with some very big news and activities that's going to take the party to the next level. So good luck to you with that. I want to
you so
thank
much.
Chairman Derek Smith and Director of Communications, Mr. Justin Smith of the Democratic National Alliance, for being my guest today. Thanks to my producer, the wonderful Kermit Ramming, to you, the beautiful listening audience that stay tuned in, the sponsors of the show, my family and friends who prayed for me, Mr. Dwight Strawn, always for the opportunity, and of course, God, my source. I'm attorney Indiana Fitzgerald. You've been listening to Guardian Radio A.M. live on 96.9 FM. Have a wonderful week, ladies and gentlemen. Indiana Fitzgerald signing out.